really kind of Brian Kelly's mantra of 1-0. I tweeted something out. I think you followed it with kind of your take, so I'll let you kind of go with it here. Is look, they've put Clemson paw prints on the weight bags. They have put an emphasis on game number one that they have to go and win this one. Well, I don't think it's displaced aggression. I think that understanding that if this team, which we've talked so much this offseason, has poured a lot of financial resources into trying to be really, really good, and knowing they've never won a season opener under Kelly and haven't won one in 5 years in general, knowing all of these things, I don't have a problem with the emphasis they're placing on game one, but there was some, I guess, pushback, we could say, from some of these people saying, fans of other teams, even LSU fans, is Brian Kelly placing too much of an emphasis on Clemson? I know you had some thoughts on it, but kind of, what did you think about Kelly's maybe, I don't want to say arrogance, but the confidence and just this detailed approach into week one?
Yeah, well, I mean, even more so for the reasons that you just said, that he's yet to win a season opener. This is an LSU team that is really, really good on paper. We expect them to be competing for an SEC title, playoff appearance, national title. If they can go into Clemson and win in week one, they are in the driver's seat for a top 4 seed in the playoff. Now, they still have to get it done in SEC play, but you go on the road week one of college football into Clemson, Death Valley. He thinks LSU's a real Death Valley, whatever, all the talking points you want to make. That's one of the hardest places to play in the country. If you can go in there and beat those guys, and, Dabo Swinney, he feels really, really good about his team. He went in the transfer portal for the first time. It's going to be a really fun game, I think, no matter who wins it. But if you go there and win that, you are in the driver's seat for top 4 in the playoffs. You're top 4 for that bye. And, you compete. It's a close loss. You're still in the playoff. That's going to be a good loss on your resume come the end of the year. So, yeah, even if you don't go up there and win, you got to at least compete and be competitive. It will be a good loss at the end of the year. And also all this talk about 1-0, 1-0. I'm jaded of 1-0 because that was Brian Harson's mantra in his year and a half at Auburn. And so I'm kind of jaded by 1-0. That was a reason for my sarcastic tweet back to you. I'm like, man, this is a new mindset. I've never heard there's hardly any coaches that say they want to win the first game of the year. I mean, just to compare.
I didn't even pick up on that, by the way.
Do what?
I said, I didn't even pick up on that, by the way. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't even know that.
Totally sarcastic. But just to compare, I mean, go ahead, timestamp it 11 minutes, 10 seconds. Compared to Hugh Freeze, what he's talked about Auburn's opener against Baylor. He said, about a month ago, someone was he was asked about it, and he goes, "Yeah, I may regret saying that I want to play a power opponent in week one." So that's kind of the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Oh, can you hear us? Can you
hear
talk?
me?
We can hear you.
Is it bad?
No, sounds fine.
Say something.
Hello, hello, hello.
You don't have to lean into it. Just talk louder.
Sorry, am I here? Can y'all hear me? Are we good?
Yes.
Jesus.
The microphone seems to have worked. Okay. I'll give some thoughts, and then Ralph, I'll go to you on this one. So welcome Ralph into the show. 12:03 mark.
Thank you.
Brian Kelly's 1-0. Will you hit on this in terms of there's a sense of urgency? And here was Kelly's quote on Monday from the podium. He goes, "We've also been 0-3 in openers at LSU under my watch. We need to do some things differently this year. That is to embrace this opener, embracing it in a manner that this is a big game. It's a tangible goal for our football team to want to be 1-0. Then let's not warm up into the season." I will say this about, my first year covering LSU 2 seasons ago. Shout out #NotAnAd TJ Ribs here in Baton Rouge, is where Brian Kelly does his, coaches show. Every coach has one. And Kelly talked about, the game leading up as they were getting ready to go to Orlando for Camping World Stadium against Florida State. Now, we all know how that game turned out, drubbing the Noles, go undefeated, and all this kind of stuff. That being said, Kelly's mantra heading into that game was, we're going to beat something along the lines of what Gus Malzahn said after they beat Georgia and Kirby Smart in 2017. we're going to beat the dog crap out of them. He essentially said, not verbatim, something along the lines of that. He took confidence into that game, fresh off of last year where LSU collapsed and missed a PAT that would have tied the game in New Orleans, and maybe they would have won the game. That being said, I don't mind Brian Kelly's confidence heading into this. I think that it's obvious, first off, that you want to go 1-0. That's not breaking news for people who want to overreact. What I think is important to note is that they're embracing this differently. In the past 2 fall camps, we have asked the question to Kelly, what do you do different? And so I think that's one of the questions that's going to be intriguing to ask this fall and hear answered is, okay, you've talked about this. What does that look like differently on a day-to-day basis? Obviously, we know it starts in the spring, the summer, instilling the mindset they go and get a bunch of veteran guys in the portal, like, Pyburn and Peyton, 2 guys that have played a lot of college football and a host of others. But what does that do differently? Because, like you said, Will, it's really just a soundbite. Everyone wants to start 1-0. You like the confidence, but what is actually tangibly different about you doing that rather than just standing at a podium and saying, hey, we're embracing it? Well, you would want to embrace every season opener. That's not breaking news. So I don't have a problem with it. It's more of the follow-up questions. I'd like, okay, so what are the differences? What makes this prep different than last year against USC in Vegas, in the past 2 years against Florida State, and both in Orlando and in New Orleans? So, Ralph, your thoughts? Is this, for the LSU fans that are overreacting, saying that he's going too far deep into this? I would beg the question, and I'll ask you here, it's not that you're going to lose a playoff spot if you don't win this one. But like Will said, God, you could position yourself as the early. I mean, if they win this game, they're going to be a top 5, top 4 team in the country. And they're probably going to be, the betting odds are going to shoot them up there in the top 3 or top 4 to win the whole thing. Not that that means anything in the month of September, but it's obviously important.
Well, if you win on the road and then knock off Death Valley, it's a pretty solid win for this program. Obviously, with Clemson having the team they had this year and their success last year, and the people they brought in this year and the guys that kept on the roster, there's just such a good team, and they're preseason probably favorites to win the ACC. They're preseason favorite to be in the final, in the championship game, at least in semifinals this year. And if you're Brian Kelly, having not won an opener in his career, now opener saying it's 0-3, you've played some pretty good teams, in my opinion.
Yeah.
2 Florida State teams that were really good, and a USC team that started off really good last year. That kind of goes under the radar, and how good they actually were at the beginning of the season. But you learned a lot about yourself from week 1 games, and obviously LSU had some games where they went up and down a lot. Toward the end of the season last year against Florida was a rough one. But going into this season, Nussmeier's last year, Caden Durham fully healthy again. They brought in some great transfers, like you said, some veterans on the defense. This has to be a game you win if you want to have a nice kind of not an easier ride, but it's a simpler ride going into the rest of your season. Obviously, you still got some games you have to win, but you can afford to lose 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Especially those tough ones with like at Alabama, and you go to you got who else go on the road to?
You go to Ole Miss, you host Florida, you host South Carolina, and you host A&M, and you go to Oklahoma.
So yeah,
and out of respect for Will, you go to Nashville and you play Vanderbilt.
But you go to Alabama and then you go to Ole Miss this year. You lose one of those games, you're still sitting pretty high on that ranking with a win at Clemson at the beginning of the year. So this is obviously it's a marquee matchup because it's one of the best games of the season to start the season off. Brian Kelly wants this 1-0 because I think he has that chip, that little thing on his shoulder and his back of his head that I have not won an opener yet here. And this would be his 4th top 10 opponent he's faced in week 1.
Yeah.
I mean, give it to me. They're scheduling some of the hardest opponents, but eventually you have to win one of